What's up, everybody? My name is Big Cam and welcome back to another movie review. And today we are continuing on spooky season into November before we get into Christmas 2025. But continuing on spooky season with 1981's The Howling. And if you guys know my spooky season movie reviews from the past, I have done I think this is my third Halloween. The first Halloween I did werewolf films. Last Halloween I did vampire films. And then this Halloween I started to do the Scream movies. I did the Ghostbusters couple of films. I'm going to finish out the Ghostbusters movies. The third of the Ghostbuster films, the Woman 2016 Ghostbusters movie review, will be coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But this werewolf film, I was shocked I hadn't seen, and I think this came out around the same time as American Werewolf in London, which I believe was also 1981. Yeah, 1981's American Werewolf in London. For both movies that came out in 81, I prefer American Werewolf in London, but The Howling was pretty damn good. And from director Joe Dante, who did things like the Gremlins movies, he did Small Soldiers. Oh no shit, I loved Small Soldiers growing up. Also kind of creepy, but still good. I don't recognize a whole lot of his other work, but you know, as far as this werewolf film went, the only person I recognized from the cast was Dennis Dugan, who has been like a producer, director with Adam Sandler and has been in a bunch of his Happy Madison movies. Was most recently just in Happy Gilmore 2. But this movie starred Dee Wallace as Karen White, and she was like a famous news anchor type thing. Patrick MACNEE played Dr. George Wagner. Christopher Stone, Belinda Balaski, Kevin McCarthy, John Carradine, Slim Pickens. That's a real guy's name. Slim Pickens, huh? Well, that's now it was a name, but it's now a saying. If you come up to a basket and there's not a whole many options, and there used to be options, you got Slim Pickens. Elisabeth Brooks as Marcia. Ooh, she was kind of like interesting character when she's doing her thing. You're like, ooh, okay, naughty. Robert Picardo as Eddie. He was real creepy. And this movie was like so 80s of its time, but you know, it was only about 90 minutes, so it's like short and sweet. And the only real gripe I have with it is it's like halfway through the movie and you haven't seen the werewolves yet, you know, and you just start to see the werewolves like halfway in. And I will say though, the actual look of the werewolves, they did kind of practically, and it's not CGI, you know. And to date, the best looking werewolf and my favorite looking werewolf is still Van Helsing. But like, also there's parts of that are super campy, and I could just really like that because of Hugh Jackman, you know what I mean? Like, where American Werewolf in London, I wasn't attached to anybody in the cast, but I respected the hell out of like them showing the morphing of the jaw and like the guy turning into a werewolf, and slowly they put different amount of makeup on him until he was a full friggin' beastly creature. But in that movie they didn't show the actual werewolf itself as much, you know, but they did a better job of it and it was a better movie. Where this wasn't necessarily a good movie, but the werewolf seeing the werewolf was like, you as soon as you lay eyes on that thing, you're like, oh, this is badass, that thing looks sick, you know, like. And I really liked how they did the same type of thing. There was like a part where it was like a good 5 minutes of like this thing morphing, and you saw like it had to have been like early CGI and them just like morphing this face, and like it didn't like do it drastically, but they were able to show how like, oh, the nose was growing, oh, he's growing ears, oh, he's getting furry, oh, his nails are coming through his fingers, you know. And the way that the nails came out of the finger reminded me of Lupin, the werewolf from Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban. And I was like, oh shit, so you can see how like every werewolf film has affected the werewolf films that have come after it. And I don't know about y'all, but I love a werewolf film. Like, as I was seeing it, I was just like, dude, I fucking love werewolves. I don't know why. I'm obsessed with a werewolf. I love a werewolf. And if I had to choose werewolf or vampires, I'm a werewolf guy all day, for sure. But I like the idea of this, you know, like it wasn't the traditional, oh, the moon's out, that means the werewolf has to come out, and he doesn't really have a choice, you know, he's at bay of the moon. This kind of werewolf story was they're masters of like transfiguration, and they can, you know, manually go, oh, I want to be a werewolf now, and it can be broad daylight. It doesn't have to be a full moon, you know, at the cycle of the moons, you know, like he can do this whenever he wants. And there was like, there wasn't just one werewolf, there was a bunch of werewolves, and then, you know, they keep affecting each other, and you don't see them all at once, like 5 werewolves at once, but you see like, you know, they start to turn in, and he just starts lighting them up with silver bullets. I was like, oh shit, Dennis Dugan, my guy. And this looked like before he met like Adam Sandler, you know what I mean? So probably early days of acting, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll show up and be the guy that shoots all the werewolves and gets her out of there, you know, like, and then because she gets bit in the process, now she's gonna turn into a werewolf, and that's kind of how like this film ends, you know, spoilers for a 40-plus-year-old movie. If you haven't seen it, like, they're like, you know, she's a news anchor, and you're thinking like, oh, happily ever after. Not quite. You know, she's giving this news anchor, and the guy producing behind the scenes like, cut the commercial, what is she saying? Make her stop. And he's like, no, keep it going, keep it live. And then, you know, she starts to, you know, show the world that there's werewolves out there, and that she's one of them is her proof. So she starts to wolf out like on, you know, live news TV. Like, imagine your news anchor all of a sudden becomes a werewolf, and you're like, what the fuck? But we don't see her fully wolf out. We just see like her start, and then Dennis Dugan's character, you know, shoots her with a silver bullet, and they're like, cut the commercial, because this is supposed to be a live TV, and they, you know, cut to commercial, but we see as like the people that were watching the televisions, like some kids are gathered around the television screen like, whoa, and they're like, what is that, son? The news lady turned into a werewolf. And they're like, yeah, whatever, turn off that movie. And they're like, no, it was real. Then there's people at like a diner, and they're all like, ah, that's not real, that's a movie. And he's like, oh, that was real, and they shot her live on TV. And they're like, you're wasted. And he's like, doesn't mean it wasn't true. You know, like, and then it ends with the lady Marcia, who was played by Elisabeth Brooks, and she was gorgeous in this film. And then all of a sudden she's at the end, you know, like, and I thought she had been killed in the process, but she was the one werewolf left alive, and she's at this diner just like sitting there like waiting to attack again, you know. And then apparently there's a Howling 2. I don't know if it's connected to this movie at all, or if it stars Elisabeth Brooks, but I don't know if I'll ever actually watch it or if it's any good, but comment below. Are there any Howling or the Howling fans out there? I was certainly here for it. I was just shocked that there was a werewolf film that I hadn't seen yet that had some great practical werewolves in it, you know. So as far as like werewolves films I watched this year, there's another film that just came out called Werewolves, and starred Frank Grillo as the guy that's like hunting down the werewolves or whatever. And that movie was, you know, practical werewolves in, you know, the modern day setting. And I don't know, something about like the way that the werewolves looked in the 1981 film looks way better than they did in 2022. So I don't understand how that's possible. Like the stuff from 40 years ago looks way better than the stuff today, you know. Like, I don't know, maybe we just rely too much on CGI and trying to make these werewolves do crazy stuff in computer generated fashion, where when you just go to practical effects and a guy in a suit, or just like a puppet, you know, like sometimes that stuff works and looks better, and then, you know, stands the test of time, and then like it becomes timeless in the way that the practical makeup and stuff looks good forever. And some of the CGI stuff just doesn't look good with age, and ages poorly, you know. So we need to get back to people that are willing to make timeless movies, and not just movies that are meant for right friggin' now, you know what I mean? Like, and sometimes you need a movie that's meant for right now, and like is what's going on in the world right now, and it's not meant for it to be a good movie in 20 years from now. But the best films are films like this, where 40 years later you can still watch it and go, yo, that looked pretty damn good, how'd they do that, you know? And then you look it up and it's like, oh, practical werewolf makeup, of course it looks so good. Like, no wonder. But Overall, I gave this film 3.5 out of 5 stars, about a 7 out of 10. Not the best werewolf film I've seen, but pretty damn good for spooky season 2025. And, you know, if you have any other werewolf films that I haven't watched yet on the channel, please drop those movie recommendations down in the comment section below. Or you can send them to me on my other social medias, Big Cam, 2Gs in the Big, pretty much anywhere. Links for those down in the description below. And if you've made it this far into the video, I highly appreciate you. And if you would like to support the channel, the best way to do that is liking this video, commenting down in the comment section below, subscribing if you haven't already, hitting that bell so you don't miss future movie reviews and you get the notifications when those come out. Once again, my name's Big Cam. Thank you guys so much for stopping on by, and I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace!